Welcome to the program The Line. In this program, we will focus on the line of control or the line of division or the division line as it is called in Kashmir. This over 600 miles long line divides Kashmir between the armies of India and Pakistan. Since 1947, these two armies are fighting each other to take Kashmir. During those long years, there is a long list of abuses, harassment, bullying, and in some cases killing of Kashmiris who are unfortunately have no other place to live but near the army barracks. We hear day in, day out incidents of abuse, molestation, rapes, and sometimes there are people who are killed for so many reasons, just and mainly just because they are there. In today's program, we will talk about a specific incident which has happened last week on the Pakistani control side of this line of division. On 17th of February, this Kashmiri young man, Mr. Ali Murtaza, who was born and grown up in Lahore with his parents who migrated there for livelihood purposes. He was visiting back to his rest of his family in Kotli, and from Kotli he went to see his relatives in Koirata, and from there it is said that he went to see one of his teachers, Hafiz Muhammad Yaqub, and when he went to his village, Hafiz Yaqub was not there. He spoken to him on phone, and then Hafiz Yaqub Sahab told some of people there that don't let him go on his own because he's new in the area, so somebody take him back to Koirata. However, Mr. Ali said that he would like to go to see his cousin in the next village, and after that he'll go to Koirata. So anyway, when he got to his cousin's house, the army personnel picked him up from there and told the family that they need to take him with them for some questioning. So he was taken on 17th of February. And when there was no sign of him till the next day, the family contacted the army, and initially they were told that he is not with them, but with some insistence and probing, they told that he is no more. He was died in their custody as the reports tell. His body was handed over to family in next day, and he was buried on the next day. From the information available, it is claimed that his dead body was given to the family in the presence of local administration on the conditions that no leak will be made to media, the news will be kept within the family, and burial will take place at the same night, and the box in which body was sealed will not be tampered with. However, of course, the family was very, very furious. They were also very curious that what happened to him. So they opened the box and they found horrifying state of the body. It was marked with torture marks and drilling, and body was seriously cut and bruised. So this news was also then leaked to media, and through social network the world, people across the world found out what happened to Murtaza Ali. Obviously, that question still remains to be answered as to why he was tortured so brutally and what led to his death. Of course, it was torture, but what was the reason for that torture? So far, whatever information has come out shows that he told to the army that he came from Kotli, and on his identity card it said that he was from Lahore. So this difference from where he came from led to the torture and then to his death. That does not make much sense. However, this incident has opened up a lot of questions, and there are so many other incidents in the area and across the line of control which have been taking place for years. Information is slowly emerging about those incidents as well. To find out more, we thought that we bring this issue out to open and discuss this with different people who have more knowledge about the area and who know more about what happens across the line of control. Today, we have with us Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, who is a social activist, civil rights campaigner, and who was born in Luton, and now he is living in Azad, Kashmir for the last 5-6 years, and he has traveled tremendously across the line, on the side of the line of control, I would say, because he's not allowed to cross the line of control to the Indian occupied side. So he has traveled on the Pakistani occupied side, and he has met people, he has spoken to people, and he has seen things and he has heard of things, and he has written a lot on whatever his experiences are. Today we have Mr. Tanveer Ahmed with us, and I'm really thankful to Tanveer for giving us this opportunity to know more and to bring more for you, our viewers. Tanveer Sahab, Assalamu Alaikum.
Wa Alaikum Salam.
Tanveer Sahab, thank you very much for coming online. Can you tell us firstly about this incident? So what exactly happened and what is the situation now?
Okay, well, this young chap, around 25, 26 years, the precise age is still not being established. But Muhammad Ali Murtaza, as you mentioned in your preamble, that he was traveling to his cousin sister's house, who lived on the LOC, who was married there, and who lived in a village called Janjot Bahadur. Now, if you refer back to what I wrote last week, he was picked up before reaching the house, because Pakistani army all along the LOC from Tibet all the way up to Taubat, and then that LOC carrying on north eastward, dividing the Ladakh from Pakistan. So the Pakistanis have civilians or local villages ahead of them, ahead of their forward position. So between the LOC on this side are villages where humans are living, civilians are living, citizens of AJK are living, and behind them are Pakistani posts. And the whole LOC is obviously littered with Pakistani posts every few kilometers, I would say, at most, sometimes even closer. I mentioned also that this incident took place not in isolation, I suspect, and it's part of the broader...
Okay, Tunisia, we will talk about the wider issues, but can you please first of all tell us what happened to this chap, and what is the situation about that incident now? What are people saying, and what is the atmosphere in the area, and what is administration is saying, and obviously, the Pakistani army top officials have given this pledge that the incident will be thoroughly investigated, and if anything is done wrong, the people will be brought to the army laws. What is the situation about that?
Right, okay. Well, with reference to the gruesome murder, he was obviously tortured, and in his pocket, it is established that he had no ID card on him. He had no Pakistani ID card on him. He had a business card in reference to a builder in Lahore. It had a Lahore address. And maybe or maybe not, that may have confused the Pakistani ISI or whoever, whichever wing of the intelligence network that they have. He was brutally tortured with drilling in his knees and nails in his feet. And the family, as well as the civil administration of AJK, deserves credit for being very tactful and being very wise in ensuring that they got access and delivery of the body, which is basically the evidence. And as you mentioned earlier, the army was reluctant to give the body, and they considered it as some sort of a favor or some sort of gratitude to Kashmiris that they're returning the dead body. But anyway, when that dead body was brought home, and the women were insistent, especially the mother of the child, that they wanted to see the child before he's buried. The coffin was opened, and against the instructions or orders of Pakistan's army. So therefore, we have pictures, and I also understand that a video was made as well, which may well soon surface. But as far as the family is concerned, they're keeping a very tight method of dialogue with Pakistan's army, and the Pakistani army is keeping them updated through their brigadier, station brigadier in Port Lee. And they've told the family so far that they have 4 people arrested. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But in the wider context, there's been very few military tribunals or military prosecution of any Indian military on the other side, and in the same way,
okay.
There's never been any chance of any prosecution.
We'll come to that in a minute. But so far, has any new information emerged that why was he tortured? What was the reason? Any more information about that?
Well, the information that I have is that the army had not yet given a narrative on what happened. Yeah, and that's the next step in what's trying to take place. Although on the surface, it's been said that 2 members of the AJK administration, along with perhaps 2 or more members of Pakistan's army, are part of the commission which is looking into this matter. But in terms of the interaction between the family and the Pakistan's army, which is the major channels going on, according to that, the Pakistani army is more or less preparing its narrative, and they're going to give that narrative to the family maybe today or tomorrow.
Okay. And obviously you have visited the family, you have interviewed some family members, and you have also had interaction with the local politicians and general population. So what is the mood at the moment? I mean, are people hopeful that this investigation will bring the truth out, or are they expecting that some justice will be done?
I don't think people here expect justice anywhere, neither in civil or criminal courts or the AJK structure that's here. They're well aware of the kind of terror and I should say extremely dominant and monopolized sort of role of Pakistan's army here in AJK. Whatever's happened here has happened because the army wanted it to happen, or whatever is not happening is because the army is not wanting it to happen.
Hmm.
And this thing filtrates throughout our society. So people are wary of giving their emotions directly in public, but privately, in many conversations that I've had, most people are basically suggesting or insisting or even, I should say, telling the Pakistani army to begin its exit from Kashmir.
Okay, well, two things have been clarified from the information given by Tanveer Rehman. The one is that Ali Murtaza was picked up before he reached to his cousin's house, and secondly, he didn't have any identity card with him. He had a business card of some builders in Lahore. So obviously the information initially came through that he was picked up from his cousin's house and he had identity card. So obviously those are, it seems, are not substantiated, and they are rumors, and obviously there are a lot of other rumors circulating as well. But moving on to the line of control itself, Tanveer Sahib, you have traveled a lot on that line. Can you tell us how when you did that journey, and what did you see, and what you experienced there?
Right, okay. Well, I've been here for 7 years and 10 months. I came in April 2005. And I spent most of the first 2 years in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad, or Rawalpindi. And I was able to have a very close look at the India-Pakistan peace process and even was witness to some of the back-channel interaction that went on too. So I moved towards Kashmir because I felt extremely left out of any kind of India-Pakistan dialogue. And I thought that the Kashmiris really need to assert their own identity, and they need to ensure that their own narrative, their own independent narrative, their narrative which is free of any kind of compulsion or free of various other notions or instructions, I should say, because public opinion in either side of Kashmir is heavily controlled through agencies, through the army, through business, through a million other social other methods.
Mm-hmm.
But the LSE, I began working on the LSE a couple of years ago when on a 10-question survey that I started in 2011 around August.
Mm-hmm.
And I covered most of what is District Bimber, which is our southeasternmost district of the UK, which adjoins Akhnur as well as Jammu too, maybe even parts of Musharraf.
Mm-hmm.
So I travelled on that, and some of the army tickets were okay, some of them gave me food, some of them gave me tea, etc. And ice cold water bottles because it was hot.
Mm-hmm.
But I came to Bagsar, and after a few days, and Bagsar is where there's a very beautiful fort, small fort on a hilltop.
Mm-hmm.
And this hilltop is famous because it has a lake inside too. It has a small lake at the top. So a castle top lake. So this castle, historically, Jahangir, the Mughal emperor, who was extremely fond of spending his summers in Kashmir, he used to use this route along with his favorite wife, Nur Jahan. So it also happens to be a place where perhaps Pakistan Army's largest or most strategic military brigade is stationed in Bimber, near the LOC. So they didn't probably want me to see that, so they intercepted me, if I can use the word intercept. just short of Pakistan, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they blindfolded me, and I went through interrogation, which was initially extremely threatening and abusive, and which changed into gentlemanly conduct when I, stayed quiet when they were addressing me in the sort of rude fashion that they were.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even after hours and hours of discussion, they still couldn't understand that, I, as a citizen of AJK, can assert my right to travel and go anywhere, and particularly anywhere where there are civilians living.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if civilians are living on the LOC and the Pakistani army is behind them, so that any firing from the Indians, it affects our people first. I mean, this is just one of many sort of harsh tactics of Pakistan's army, despite being a sort of Muslim neighbor, if one can use that term.
Mm.
Even dialogue with them didn't make any sense to them. Yeah, I said that it's not constitutionally part of Pakistan, and Pakistan's laws or whatever it dictates is something which is subject to people's will in AJK. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any kind of public opinion or public discussion mechanism in AJK all throughout these 65 years.
Mm-hmm.
Life is tough for the people. A lot of them are sort of forced or they feel it necessary that they need to take instructions from Pakistan's army or its agencies in terms of movement across the LOC, and smuggling takes place. I hear kind of fantastic stories, but how much it is in volume or how rife it is, I can certainly say it takes place in every place wherever there is a Pakistani army or Indian army's soldiers stationed. The people who live in between this so-called no man's land, they have very few economic opportunities. They can't even till their land because most of their land is mined or it's under the control of Pakistan's army. It's a pretty horrid life, and understanding their lives and how they were affected by this line of division, as you mentioned in your preamble, it was very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And the death of Murtaza is kind of ironic in so many ways. Someone who had hardly any idea of this line of division, as far as we understand from his background.
Okay, Tanveer, when the army captured you and they were interrogating, what was their main worry? What were they asking, and what were they concerned about?
They were very interested in me as a person, like who I am and what I do and who I work for, right? So that wasn't difficult because I just referred them right to the internet. I said, look, if you go on the net, because I document most things I do. I mean, I write, I make videos, I conduct audio programs, and I take photos. So things are on the net. So if you want to be really interested in me, you can go on the net and spend a lot of time there. But in the meantime, you don't need to sit with me as if I'm kind of an outsider. I mean, you're the outsider. And, that should be established.
Okay. So, and you indicated earlier on that this Ali Murtaza incident was not an isolated one. What information you have gathered that what kind of other incidents has taken place, and are you aware of some of those incidents?
Well, I have a long list of atrocities that have taken place on this side of the LOC. I mean, Muzaffarabad, you have this Black Fort, which is on the western bank of the river Kashmir. If you were to travel, go inside there, you'll find 1,001 stories of what goes on in terms of atrocities along the LOC. But the problem is that there are not many people in AJK, right, who document these things and keep them together. And what happens is that when something like this happens, there is this kind of tendency of people to bring up cases which have happened. I mean, all these cases that have been cited, I mean, there should be no suggestion that those other incidents have taken place kind of a few days before or a few days after Muhammad Ali Murtaza's atrocious murder. But things have happened that, people are starting to talk about it. And maybe this is one aspect of civil society that is showing some kind of progress, if you like.
Okay, so...
And I think that this case of Muhammad Ali Murtaza is interesting in many ways because, the Pakistani army had no idea that the relations of this boy who they are torturing, are also part of the media in AJK.
Yeah, and also part of the governing structure there, because one of his uncles, I think Mr. Mahbub Chaudhry, he very categorically accused army for his torture and killing.
Yes.
So that is something, obviously, he can't just accuse them. Obviously, he has some information on the basis of which he made those claims. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm certain because I spoke to so many different people, and I have photo and video evidence of the results of the body that came to the family of Muhammad Ali Murtaza. It came via the DC, but it came, I should rather say, in the presence of the DC, and handed over by the Pakistani army. So the Pakistani army is handing over somebody to a family, right? And also saying to that family that yes, he's been tortured to death, and he's been tortured to death in our custody. So you have an admission by the Pakistani army. I mean, the point is, right, I mean, what court of law do we put this in? And, how much media ethics are involved here? I mean, the BBC did take its time, although as soon as I put up that Facebook update, I was contacted within 10 minutes by the BBC. But it took them quite a while to bring it up on BBC Urdu, and then another day or two to bring it up on BBC English. But I mean, I suppose that's the nature of how the global media and regional media in India and Pakistan has kind of treated Kashmir, where there's never been any focus on the opinions of the Kashmiri people with reference to their future. That's never been an allowed topic, or if it has been allowed, it's been very much conditioned into something that is too narrow. And that marginalizes the Kashmiri voice whenever. But Julian Mahbub made the allegations with, I mean, the word may be more stronger than allegation, because there's sufficient evidence there. I mean, people did in Seri, which is the place before Jaffa, where apparently he was picked up from, which is just barely a couple of kilometers from the LOC. The people there saw him being picked up by the army. So,
I mean, I know that you are yourself a part of a campaign, or actually you are leading a campaign to build a civil society in Azad Kashmir, so people are more aware of their rights and they can assert their rights, and they can speak up for their rights in a peaceful and in an effective manner. I mean, why your view? Why is the response so far to your efforts, and what other civil society groups are doing? Is there any group who is documenting these incidents near the line of control?
Well, yeah, I'm doing as much as I can in terms of documentation. I mean, a lot of our public activities that's taken place in the past couple of months has been towards the LOC in those very areas, and in that very area where Muhammad Ali Murtaza was picked up. I mean, our first visit to that very place from where he was picked up was on the 21st of February 2012, last year. We went up to the LOC and I was filming, and Pakistani army guy came and said, can you close the camera, right? So I said, look, the battery is weak at the moment, so I will close it. He will close itself when the battery dies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he said to me that, you are talking to me in a very stern way. I said, yeah, because, I'm in my home and, you're an outsider, so, and whatever responsibility you have is kind of very confined to kind of warfare, right? And, I'm a citizen who lives here, so I can travel wherever I like.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, 6 or 7 people with me as well. But that also led to a long marathon of discussions, which lasted for 5-6 hours. I made things clear to them that the world is changing and social media, etc. And filming, it shouldn't be seen by them as something which compromises their presence in any way. But the whole world knows that the Pakistani army and the Indian army are kind of head-to-head across this line of division.
So, I mean, traditionally, the situation has been that any word about any wrongdoing by Pakistani army in Azad Kashmir was seen as kind of treason, or is kind of taking the pro-India line. It was people who dared to speak out. They were accused of that. Is it still the same, or are people talking about that more openly now?
Yeah, I think that it's a very important point, and that's also another point of progress of civil society. When I use the word civil society, I'm not referring to anything particularly associated with me necessarily. I'm talking about civil society in general, and a lot of things have happened in AJK over the past few years, which have involved many different people playing a lot of positive roles. It would be a long list of people to mention. That's also another thing which now society is ready to kind of address, yeah? I have, for example, I'm conducting a poll at the moment asking the lawyers of District Courtly, which are no more than 500 in number throughout the district of Courtly. I'm asking them, I'm putting a scenario to them, a question, with a bit of background, and then the question I'm asking them is that should Pakistan's army remain in AJK, or should they leave in a phased manner? Although I'm not going to divulge the current ratio of lawyers that have said they remain or go, but I can tell you about people that have asked casually in general in the public, wherever I've gone in the past few days, including Nansa and Koti City. And I'm quite astonished that out of 20 people, 19 people are saying that the Pakistani army should leave. So, the thing about India, I mean, that was a weapon and a propaganda tool used by Pakistan, which worked very well for 64 years.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, obviously.
I think now, things are moving ahead, and people do understand that there needs to be a rational debate, and you can't just use the label of something in order to quash some kind of idea.
Mm-hmm. 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 And what about?
So there has been development. Yeah, there has been civil society development.
Okay. And of course, this argument that if Pakistanis leave, India will take over, and Indians say that if we leave, the Pakistanis will take over. This is used on both sides of the line of control or ceasefire line. But what about the people's capacity to document these incidents and present them, because so far it seems that even the the parties which are claiming to fighting for liberation, they only come up with allegations and slogans without any articulated data about what exactly happens to people near the army posts.
Yes, I think that the parties of the UK, nationalist parties, if you're referring to them in particular, they do have a set pattern of working, and I won't go too deep into that. But I think it's the
is there any training available to them? Are you thinking on lines that you should organize some training for people, that how they can do it in a way that brings out the abuse, but that does not put people against army?
Well, the thing is that, in terms of training, right, if I say that I'm going to give them some training, they may take offense to that, So I do whatever I do sort of like, casually. I work in a very loose pattern. And, it's when you start regimentalizing things, people here, are not used to that. They're not used to any kind of consistency, unfortunately. Yeah?
Okay.
They're not quite ready. They're not quite ready. They do understand that change is necessary, but they're not quite ready to work for it.
Okay. One another important question is that usually in this type of situations where abuses happen and then abuses become known to people and people start reacting to that, usually then the occupying armies get more aggressive to silent people, and then people get more vocal to protest against that, and that becomes clash, and usually more civilians get killed and tortured. How to avoid that situation in Azad Kashmir? What are your views on that?
I think that the Pakistani army is already on its back foot and has been, yeah. And Murtaza's case is again, he may well become a kind of benchmark for something. Yeah. I think that the people, right? I understand it, and they're not quite prepared yet, but they're kind of almost there. And in terms of fear and aggression and what have you, I think the Pakistani army doesn't want things to get out of hand. So therefore, it's kind of being very, very benevolent and kind to the family, which is demanding total kind of transparency in terms of what's going on, and they want to be in a position to be able to interview those people who perpetrated this crime at some point in the very near future. The people of HK have an opportunity. They don't recognize it. I know dirty things do happen and dirty things never happen in the past 5 years. But with the availability of media and social media, people, yes, are starting to use social media in a constructive way. It's still very, very basic. It's still very, very elementary, but it's there. And the volume is there. There are a few thousand people out there working, and that could increase fivefold, tenfold, and when it does, it becomes a very, very big obstacle for Pakistan or India or for anybody else for that matter.
And obviously linked to that is the issue of divided families. The families which are living on this side and some members are living on other side of the division line. What is the latest about that? Are there any developments? Is there any progress being made on to make travel easy for them to see each other?
Well, no, there's not much happening. I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but 2008 when the route between Rawalakot and Punch via Kadinot, when that opened, it was only agreed that it would be opened merely about 20 or so or 18 days before it opened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The road between Muzaffarabad and Srinagar was pretty much closed, effectively closed for 65 years, sorry, for 57 years, if I remember correctly, 58 years. But when it came to its opening, it opened within maximum 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginning of discussion to it actually opening, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so there's nothing happening, right? But something could happen very soon. And, on a personal level, I'm really hoping, because, a lot of effort has been put into Kolkata and work there over the past 6-7 months. And I'm hoping that to be Kotli Rajori via Kolkata.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to wait for India and Pakistan to do something as a confidence building measure, because both countries have serious reservations about opening any kind of route through Mirpur division, because Mirpur division along with Jammu division holds a lot of the capital, financial capital as well of the whole state. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when you make the state some sort of move towards some sort of self-sufficiency in economy, then it kind of dilutes Pakistan and India's control. So the both have been conscious of that. We found from their agencies through indirect feedback that Mirpur division and Jammu division are heavily populated. So India and Pakistan cannot afford to open a route for Kashmiris or for Jamwals for that matter. So I mean, that is a concern. So this is something which needs to be discussed at some sort of a global forum. And I'm well prepared for that, but the problem is that I am hoping that global forum could take place in AJK.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I would make a request here. I mean, I would use this broadcast, and I must thank you. I should have mentioned at the beginning, but I do thank you for giving me this opportunity to try and give some insight of AJK. So it's something which needs to be discussed by influential, important people globally, but it needs to be discussed here in AJK.
Mm-hmm. So what request you want to make?
If you discuss something which is pertinent to a matter, to an issue which is on that field, I think that gives an opportunity for civil society to create a more organized pattern of lobbying for, the opening of this route.
Okay. And of course there are divided families in Britain as well who migrated from Azad Kashmir, and their children. I think you are one of those young people who realized this issue when you were in Luton. Can you tell us something about that?
About Luton, I spent a lot of my early years in Luton. I must clarify that I was born in Kashmir. I was born here in Naseem Sensor. And I spent the first 4 years of my life here, and the 4 years that I spent here, and the time that I spent with my maternal grandmother, I think that were first 4 elementary years, but I think there was enough that happened in that time which made me, even though I was living in England and grew up in England, I was wanting to come back, even though initially it was momentary, on average once a year. But I think finally, everything kind of all roads led to AJK. it was that relationship with my maternal grandmother that kind of led me back here and took me away from a totally different kind of life. But I think the field of journalism gave me that kind of inspiration, or if you like, or that kind of determination to look for the truth and to look at a whole region objectively and try to understand the feelings and emotions of the people that live there. It's when you capsize people, the Kashmiri people, the people of Jammu and Kashmir, and Balochistan, and Ladakh, etc., being separated from each other, Skardu being separated from Kargil. I've read stories. I've been to Skardu. I've visited there. I've heard stories which are not too similar to the ones that you hear about brothers and sisters or mothers and fathers separated across this line of division. So a lot of human emotion there, and India and Pakistan, I would very clearly say, are responsible for kind of not only participating, but actively instigating the capsizing of Kashmiri, or the Kashmiri mind, capsizing that, and also this drilling mentally of people on either side that Kashmir cannot be independent, or that's never an option that needs to be discussed or elaborated on, or kind of developed.
Okay. Obviously, we will be discussing that wider issue as well in our forthcoming programs. But have you visited the Indian side of Kashmir ever?
Yeah, I've been there 3 times, in fact. The first time I went in 1989, in December 1989. I visited Srinagar, up to Gulmarg, and from Jammu, or even before Jammu, from Pathankot in Indian Punjab. I vividly remember the age of 17 or 18. Yeah.
During
17, I think I was.
During those visits, what you have gathered that what common people on other side think about this division and this issue of families divided?
I think in many ways, from what I witnessed, directly from my experience of my own of my family, with my maternal grandmothers, and also many other examples, I feel the people over there have somewhat of a stronger urge to meet their relations on this side. I mean, the Hindus and Sikhs who live there, who have relatives who became Muslims, and it must be recognized that in 47, a lot of Hindus and Sikhs of this territory, all the way, all along this crooked LOC, people were forced to become Muslims because that was the only way they could retain their land and kind of retain their way of life as much as what it was before, and prevent being uprooted. But of every Hindu and Sikh family that lived in or let's say the Dogra state of Jammu and Kashmir, I feel the urge is more on the other side. I think that's something that needs to be recognized.
Mm-hmm. But is the
that certainly does not mean that the people here do not have do not have an anxiety or a will or a hope. These people have strong desires to. I don't want to belittle that, but on average, I felt that people on the other side had a stronger urge.
But so far, it seems that there is no network, no organization of divided families on either side. Like there are so many other NGOs and civil society organizations and campaigns, but there is none specifically focusing on the issue of divided families, and especially led by divided families.
Well, look, everything is when there's 2 militaries about, creating any kind of organization that has any kind of political connotation. I mean, how on earth in a territory which has been falsely described as a disputed territory between India and Pakistan, how on earth can any kind of organization function in its true spirit on the either side of the divide, because everything ultimately is physical. Ultimately everything is sensitive. Ultimately everything is related to a disputed territory. So creating some sort of organization which kind of linked or tries to link families across the LOC. I mean, even within the very, very kind of mild and very soft and very, very kind of cautious interaction that is taking place through various NGOs and other organizations is, extremely, extremely limited. Some credit, I suppose, should go to Conciliation Resources. It's a British-based charity, which has done some interesting work, despite all these obstacles.
Okay, thank you very much, Tanveer, for updating us on the issue of Ali Murtaza and the life near the line of division in general. And hopefully we will speak to you again, and hopefully you will carry on working for the peaceful and progressive civil society in Azad Kashmir, and we wish you best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shamsur Rahman, for having me, and my regards to each and every sincere person, each and every sincere citizen of Jammu and Kashmir living in Britain and elsewhere, to concentrate focus on this region and kind of focus the lens on Kashmir is what I say.
Thank you very much, Tanveer. This was Tanveer Ahmed with us from Azad Kashmir, talking about the case of Ali Murtaza, who was found murdered and whose dead body was handed over by Pakistan Army to the family on the 21st of February, and who was buried on that day. And his case, as we have learned from Tanveer Ahmed, is being investigated, and it is obviously, as Tanveer said, justice there in any walk of life is not very commonly available. However, let's see if Ali Murtaza's case can open a tiny door to change in the behavior and attitude of Pakistani Army that is stationed near the line of control, and hope the life of people who are living in near the line of control will become a bit easier. However, it is yet remain to be seen that what actually will happen. Usually it is a trend that whenever we discuss that Pakistani Army stationed in Azad Kashmir is involved in abuses, usually people react that is even if they do, it should not be mentioned, it should not be raised, because that affects the morale of Pakistani Army and the morale of people, and that will give strength to the Indian Army, and it will give upper hand to the Indian Army, who also is engaged in huge and massive gross human rights violations in their occupied part of Kashmir, and that is well documented, and the world is well aware of what Indian Army is doing there, and of course that is not acceptable. That is no justification whatsoever for any human rights violation in Kashmir by Indian Army or by Pakistani Army or by any other groups who have means of violence and means of suppression. So whether they are a militant group, whether there is army, whether it is Indian Army or Pakistani Army, no one has a right to abuse other people, to torture other people, to kill other people. This is not the way to move forward. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.